the market of broken promises. The twin suns burned above the slave market of Zarnath Prime. The air smelled of sweat, oil, and hopelessness. Shouting filled the space. Auctioneers calling prices, buyers barking orders, and cages rattling as frightened. Beings were moved around like meat. Jace Morgan, a human trader from Earth, walked slowly through the crowd. His boots kicked up red dust with every step. He hated this place. He hated how people treated others like property. But he had come looking for engine parts, not trouble. Still, trouble had a way of finding him. A large alien guard shoved a young boy toward a metal cage. The boy cried. Jace looked away. Disgusting, he muttered. He was about to leave when he felt it, eyes watching him. Turning his head, Jace spotted her. A tall alien woman stood behind rusted bars. Her skin shimmered faintly like silver stone. Her white hair was braided with beads of dull crystal. Her clothes were torn but arranged with dignity. She didn't beg. She didn't lower her head like the others. She held her small daughter close, shielding the child with one arm. The girl couldn't be more than 5 years old. She was trembling, her eyes big and filled with silent fear. Then something unexpected happened. The woman pushed open the cage door. The lock was broken. No one had bothered to fix it. Slowly, carefully, she walked out and stood in front of Jace. Whispers rippled through the crowd. What is she doing? She'll be punished. She stepped out without permission. But the woman didn't flinch. She looked up at the tall human man, her voice calm but shaking just slightly. I offer myself, she said. And my daughter. Jace blinked. What? Take us, she continued. Not as slaves, as your concubines. Time seemed to freeze. A dozen alien heads turned toward them. A nearby auctioneer gasped. The guards stiffened, unsure if they should act. This was not a normal request. It was something older, something legal by ancient Zarnath tradition, but almost never used. You... what? Jace repeated more softly. The woman bowed her head only slightly, just enough to show submission. My name is Valari. This is my daughter, Naira. If we are not chosen soon, we will be separated. She is small. They will sell her alone. Valari's voice cracked. Please. I am not asking for chains, only protection. By law, if you accept us as your companions, no one can take her away. We will be yours, and she will be safe. Jace stood frozen. He wasn't a buyer. He wasn't here to collect women. He didn't believe in owning people. He had fought in the border wars to end slavery on 3 moons, but this wasn't begging. This was a mother ready to give up her pride to protect her child. Jace looked down at the girl. Naira clung tightly to Valari's leg. Her small hand held a broken toy made of string and bone. She stared at Jace with wide eyes, not pleading, just waiting. What happens if I walk away? Jace asked, his voice low. Valari closed her eyes for a moment. She will be taken. I will be punished for leaving the cage, and we will be separated forever. One of the guards stepped forward. Human, he barked. Do not listen to her. She's a traitor to her kind. Royal blood, they say, but no home left. Make your trade and move on. Jace looked around. Eyes were on him, some curious, some hungry, some angry. He hated being the center of attention, but he couldn't walk away. He crouched down, looked the little girl in the eyes, and spoke softly. Do you want to come with me? Naira didn't speak. She simply nodded and reached out one tiny hand. Jace stood and faced Valari. I'm not the kind of man who takes concubines, he said. Valari's expression didn't change. Then take us as something else, just don't leave us here. He nodded once. Fine, you're coming with me. Gasps echoed through the market. One of the auctioneers shouted, That's not legal without stamp and seal. Jace pulled out his ID chip and pushed it into the trade terminal. Then stamp it, he growled. Now. Valari fell to her knees, not in shame, but in silent relief. She held Naira close. The deal was done, but deep inside, Jace knew this wasn't over. He had just bought more than freedom. He had stepped into a secret, and into a war he didn't yet understand. The shameful pact Jace didn't sleep that night. The stars outside the ship's window drifted by slowly, but his mind raced. Valari and her daughter were now resting in the guest quarters, silent, calm, but heavy with unspoken pain. He sat alone in the control room holding a warm cup of stim tea, staring at the glowing ID screen. One signature, one stamp, and suddenly 2 lives were tied to his name. Concubines, he whispered, still not able to say it without discomfort. That word, it didn't feel right. He didn't want a servant or a bedmate. He had seen enough. War and death to know what real value meant. But Valari didn't ask for pleasure. She asked for safety, and that made it harder to ignore. The door behind him opened with a soft hiss. Valari stood there, wrapped in a plain gray cloak he had given her. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the soft light. Her long hair was now loose, falling gently over her shoulders. But her eyes were sharper than any blade. "You haven't rested," she said softly. "Neither have you." They stared at each other in silence for a moment. Then Jace spoke, voice firm. "Tell me the truth. Why really did you make that offer? I can see you're not just some beggar." Valari stepped closer, but kept her hands folded. "I gave you what your laws respect," she said, "not what I wanted. I'm not like the others." "I know," she replied. "That's why I chose you." She sat down opposite him. Her posture was proud but tired, not broken, not even close. "I come from the house of Serelith," she began, her voice distant. "A noble line. My ancestors ruled the sky colonies. I was a chief advisor, and until a rival family betrayed us, they accused me of treason, stripped my name, burned my records, and placed a bounty on my child." Jace frowned. "Why her?" Valari hesitated. "Because she carries something powerful in her blood, a dormant code. Only daughters of royal descent have it. And if someone controls her, they control future succession rights. She is small, but her blood makes her valuable, dangerous." Jace's grip tightened on the cup. "So they would take her, use her?" "They already tried," she said, her voice cold. "Once. That's how I ended up in chains." There was silence again, the kind of silence filled with the weight of truth. Jace leaned forward. "Why did you say concubine? Why not ask for help in some other way?" Valari looked at him with tired eyes. "Because the law protects concubines under the bonded guardian code. They cannot be separated from their protector. Even a child under that bond is considered part of the property. Cruel, yes, but legal. You gave yourself that title, just to save her? I gave up my dignity, not my soul." Jace looked down. That wasn't weakness, that was strength. He'd met hardened warriors with less courage. He sighed. "You won't be treated that way here. I don't care what the law says." Valari smiled faintly. "I know. That's why I trusted you." Suddenly, a small voice echoed from the corridor. "Mama, I had a bad dream." It was Nira. She stood at the door, tiny hands rubbing her eyes. Her long white hair was messy, and she clutched a worn piece of cloth like a blanket. Jace turned. "You okay, kid?" She nodded slowly, then whispered, "Can I stay here?" Without waiting, she walked over and climbed onto Valari's lap, curling into her mother's arms. Valari looked at Jace. "You're part of her world now, whether you like it or not." Jace gave a tired smile. "Yeah, I'm starting to see that." Outside, the stars kept moving. But inside that little ship, something new had started. Not a contract, not a trade, a bond. One made not of desire, but of survival, trust, and something stronger than blood. A name in chains 3 days had passed since Valari and Nira joined Jace on his ship, the Red Ember. But peace was short-lived. On the outside, everything looked calm. Jace had cleaned out a storage room and turned it into a small space for them. He even found Naira a soft toy from his old travel bag, a stuffed alien creature with floppy ears. She named it Bobo and kept it with her all the time, but Valari hadn't smiled once. She stayed quiet, watching the ship's radar, checking local channels, and always keeping one hand near the emergency escape panel. Jace noticed it, but didn't ask. Not yet. One evening, while Naira slept in a blanket fort built from old supply crates, Jace brought Valari a warm drink. She accepted it with a nod but said nothing. "You don't have to act like a soldier every second," he said gently. Valari didn't look at him. "A soldier doesn't survive what I did." Jace sat across from her. "Tell me." Valari finally turned her head. Her eyes were tired but not weak. "They didn't just chain me for what I knew. They erased my name." "What do you mean?" "In our world," she said softly, "a name is not just sound. It is power. A name holds your family, your history, your blood. When they took it, they didn't just imprison me. They made me nothing." She lifted her wrist and showed him a faint brand, burned skin, in the shape of an X. "This means voidborn, a soul with no house, a mother with no rights. Naira is now called chainborn. It's what they call children born to fallen royals in captivity. If anyone finds out who she is," Jace's throat tightened, "they'll come for her." "They won't stop," Valari said. "Not until she's under control or dead." There was a long pause. The hum of the ship was the only sound. Jace stood and walked to the front console. He pressed a few keys, then returned with a small metal disc. He handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "A nameplate. You can link it to the ship. I made one for her too." Valari stared at it, unsure. "From now on," Jace said slowly, "no one erases your name. Not while you're under my roof." Valari didn't cry. She simply held the disc tight against her chest. But something in her eyes softened. Just then, a sharp alarm began to beep. Jace rushed to the console. "Incoming ping. Ship approaching. Fast. No ID signature." Valari was behind him in seconds. "They found us. How?" She shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe the market vendor betrayed us." "Hang on," Jace said, flipping switches. "We're jumping out of here." The ship began to shake. Valari grabbed Naira from the fort and buckled her into the side seat. "Who are they?" Jace asked. Valari whispered, "House-droken. My enemies. They want Naira alive, but only just enough to control her." The screen showed a long, black ship sliding into view. It didn't broadcast a warning. It simply locked weapons. Jace gritted his teeth. "We're not going to outrun them." "Then fight," Valari said. Jace turned to her. "You're a mother, not a warrior." She pulled back her cloak, revealing something hidden beneath. A silver blade, smooth, curved, glowing faintly with plasma veins. "I was both," she said, "and I will be again." As Jace activated the defense cannons, Valari knelt beside Naira, brushing the child's hair back. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. "You are not chainborn. You are my daughter." The ship shook again, this time harder. The enemies had fired the first shot. Jace stood beside Valari, both ready to protect something more precious than bloodline or law. They weren't bonded by title. They were bonded by choice. And no chain in the galaxy could break that. Hunted through the stars. The ship roared as it broke through the upper atmosphere of a desert moon. Smoke trailed behind the red ember as it dodged enemy fire. Inside, warning lights flashed red across the cockpit, and the smell of burning wires filled the air. Jace gripped the controls tightly. "They're still chasing us." Valari sat beside him, her eyes sharp and cold. "They won't stop until they get Naira, and now they know we're not just running. We're fighting." In the back cabin, little Naira curled up in the emergency pod. She hugged her toy Bobo and whispered, "Please, don't let them take me again." Jace's voice echoed over the ship's intercom. Hold tight. Things are going to get rough. A second enemy ship appeared on the radar. Smaller, faster, a scout. They're trying to cut off our escape, Valari said, quickly activating the ship's jammer system. If they block our jump path, we'll be trapped. Jace cursed under his breath. We're not built for battle. I'm a mechanic, not a war pilot. Valari's hand rested on his shoulder. But you have something better. You have someone to protect. He looked at her, just for a second, and nodded. Then the enemy's voice broke through the comms, cold and mocking. Return the royal child and your death will be quick. Refuse and we'll burn you from the sky. Jace answered with silence. Then he hit the thrusters. The red ember spun hard left, diving low across the moon's surface, flying just above rock formations and sandstorms. The second ship followed, but couldn't match the human-made thrusters. In tight turns, Valari jumped from her seat and sprinted toward the storage hatch. What are you doing? Jace shouted. She opened a sealed crate. Inside was a forbidden device, an illegal alien cloaker, barely legal in most sectors. You stole a cloaker? He said in disbelief. No, she replied, holding it up. I earned it. Valari attached the device to the side panel of the ship and activated it. Suddenly, the red ember vanished from the enemy's radar. The pursuing ships slowed, then stopped. They've lost us, she said, returning to the cockpit. For now, Jace replied, guiding the ship quietly into a canyon. But they'll scan the whole system soon. We need a place to land and repair. There's a hidden moon nearby, Valari said. Once a royal retreat, now forgotten, it's unlisted. We'll be safe for a while. Jace looked at her curiously. How do you know all this? Valari finally answered the question she had avoided since day one. I was more than an advisor. I was to be queen. Jace blinked. You were the royal heir? No, she said, shaking her head. I was chosen to marry the heir. But when I refused the corrupted prince, he turned on me. I fled with Nira. The throne fell, and my name was buried. There was a pause. Jace let out a breath. You gave up a kingdom to protect her. I gave up everything, she said. And now, I found something worth more. She looked at him, not as a rescuer, not as a protector, but as an equal. At that moment, the ship entered the orbit of a dark, jungle-covered moon. It was quiet, peaceful. They landed gently, hidden beneath giant alien trees that shimmered with purple leaves. Nira peeked from the back. Are we safe now? Jace walked over and picked her up, holding her close. For now, little one, he whispered, but we'll stay ready. Outside, the stars still burned bright, but beneath the canopy of the forgotten moon, something stronger burned in their hearts. A promise. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were becoming a family. The royal threat days passed quietly on the jungle moon. Valari and Nira helped Jace repair the ship. They cooked simple meals, slept in hammocks strung between trees, and even laughed once or twice. For the first time in years, Valari stopped, looking over her shoulder. But peace never lasted long. One evening, while the wind whispered through the glowing leaves, a strange sound echoed from the distance, a high-pitched hum, like metal tearing the sky. Jace looked up sharply. That's no storm, he said. Valari was already moving. It's them. They've found us. Before Jace could reply, a dark ship broke through the clouds above. Black, sharp-edged, and marked, with the golden emblem of House Droken, a dragon coiled around a throne. Valari froze. Him. A voice echoed from their comm unit. Cold, deep, familiar to her. Valari of Saraleth, you cannot run forever. Give us the child and we will leave you alive. This is your only offer. Jace grabbed his blaster and looked at her. Who is that? She didn't answer at first. Then, Kareth, the prince I was meant to marry, now self-crowned lord of House Droken. Jace stared at her in shock. You were supposed to marry him? I refused, she said. He wanted control, not love. When I defied him, he declared me unfit. Naira was born shortly after, and he claims she's his. But he lies. Jace gritted his teeth. And now he wants her to solidify his power. Valari nodded. With her blood he can claim the ancient throne. Outside, the ship lowered slowly, aiming weapons. Kareth's voice came again. You offered your body to a human. How pathetic. Come out, let your daughter see what failure looks like. Jace's hands tightened into fists. Let me talk to him. Valari's eyes widened. No, but it was too late. Jace stepped out from the trees, weapon in hand. He activated the comm. This child is not yours, he said firmly, and she never will be. A pause. Then, laughter. Human. You are nothing but a toy she used. You think she chose you? No, she was desperate. You're a tool. Jace didn't react. Say what you want, but I protect what's mine. The warship's engines powered up. Valari ran beside him. We can't fight them head on. They'll burn this whole forest. Jace whispered. Then we use the forest against them. He turned to her. You know this place. You said it was once a royal retreat. Valari's eyes lit up. Yes, there are ancient defense markers hidden in the jungle. If we activate them, they'll think the jungle's eating them. Naira ran out holding something in her hand, the nameplate Jace gave her. Papa, she said softly. I don't want to go with that man. Jace knelt. You never will, little one. I promise. Valari's hand found Jace's. For a moment, they were not a former noble, a soldier, and a child, they were a family. Then Valari disappeared into the trees to activate the old systems. Jace stayed behind, standing like a wall between Naira and the warship. Suddenly the jungle came alive. Blades shot from the trees, roots erupted like whips, and old royal turrets burst from the earth and fired at the enemy ship. Kareth shouted in rage over the comms. Valari, you dare raise the forest against me? She replied with steel in her voice. I dare because I'm no longer yours. I belong to no throne, and neither does my daughter. Kareth's ship struggled against the traps. Smoke filled the sky. With one last scream of fury, he ordered a retreat. The black ship vanished into the clouds. For now, Valari returned, scratched, and out of breath. Jace looked at her. He'll come back, she nodded. Then we prepare. But as Naira ran to them and hugged them both tightly, Valari whispered something Jace didn't expect. Thank you for giving me more than protection. You gave me a reason to stand. Again. The human stand, the jungle moon, was no longer safe. Kareth's retreat had been temporary. His final message was clear. I will return. And this time, I bring fire. Valari knew what that meant. Orbital bombardment. The next attack wouldn't be a chase. It would be an execution. Inside the red ember, Jace tightened bolts, fixed fuel lines, and loaded every plasma cell he had left. He didn't say much, he just worked. Fast, focused, quiet. Valari watched him from the doorway, holding Naira in her arms. You could still leave, she said gently. This fight isn't yours. Jace didn't even look up. It is now. She walked closer. Why? Jace finally turned to her. His hands were dirty, his face covered in sweat. But his eyes were calm. Because I was born on a colony where no one came to help us. Pirates burned our homes. My mother died hiding me under floorboards. I swore if I ever saw someone in danger, someone who couldn't fight back, I wouldn't turn away. He picked up a rifle and checked the charge. I couldn't save her back then. But I can save you now. Valari stared at him. She had once been surrounded by warriors, nobles, servants, even guards. But none had ever stood for her without wanting something in return, until now. Just then, a sharp beeping came from the console. They're here, Jace said. A massive shadow fell over the moon as Kareth's warship entered low orbit. Dozens of landing pods began falling from the sky like metal rain. Valari gripped Naira tighter. They'll send shock troops first, Jace nodded. Then I'll meet them at the edge of the forest. You'll be outnumbered, she warned. I'll slow them down. You and Naira get to the backup shuttle hidden in the cliffs. Valari stepped forward, voice trembling. I'm not leaving you. You have to. But Valari didn't move. Then softly, she said something he never expected to hear. You were the only one who saw me as more than a title. Or a body. She touched his chest, over his heart. You gave me worth again. They stared at each other in silence. Then, without warning, Naira placed something into Jace's hand. Her tiny nameplate. The one he had given her. Papa, she said softly. Bring it back. Jace kneeled and smiled. I will. Then he turned, loaded his gear and disappeared into the trees. At the forest edge, the landing pods cracked open. Tall armored aliens in black and red stormed out, weapons raised, scanning the jungle. But they didn't expect the human. Jace stepped into view, calm and ready. You boys came all this way, he said. Might as well show you what Earthmen are made of. They opened fire. Jace moved fast, dodging behind roots, returning shots with precise aim. The jungle trap slowed them. Roots tangled their legs, heat vents burst upward, and old turrets Valari had reactivated burned holes through their lines. Still they kept coming. But so did Jace. Wounded, bleeding, but never backing down. He became more than a mechanic, more than a protector. He became a wall between evil and innocence. Behind him, far away on the cliff, Valari watched through her scope. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't run. She handed Naira to the shuttle's control system and whispered, "Take her to safety." Then she picked up her blade and turned back. A family not bought, but chosen smoke rose from the jungle. Ashes floated in the air like falling snow. Trees had burned. Ground was scorched. Bodies of Kareth's soldiers lay scattered across the forest floor, some caught in traps, others fallen, by Jace's hand. But Jace himself was barely standing. His arm was burned, his side bled heavily. His breathing was rough. Still he faced forward, rifle aimed. In front of him stood Kareth, finally on the ground, wrapped in black royal armor with golden crest shining on his chest. His face was sharp, cold, and full of rage. You're just a human, Kareth sneered. Bleeding, broken, and still you fight? Jace wiped blood from his mouth. Yeah, humans do that. You think she loves you? Kareth hissed. She used you. A real queen never gives herself to a lowborn creature. Jace smiled weakly. Then you've never known real love. Kareth raised his blade, glowing, with dark energy. Then came the whisper of wind, and Valari appeared from the smoke. Her cloak was gone, her blade in hand, her eyes glowing with ancient fire. She gave herself to me. Kareth growled. You were mine. Valari didn't flinch. I was never yours, I was my own. And now I fight for the only man who truly saw me. She stepped beside Jace, standing shoulder to shoulder. Jace looked at her. You were supposed to run. She smiled faintly. I chose to stay. Together, they faced Kareth. The final fight was short, but fierce. Jace blocked with his wounded body. Valari struck with speed and fury. Her blade met Kareth's. Sparks flew, bones cracked, blood sprayed the earth. Then, with one clean strike, Valari drove her blade into Kareth's chest. He fell, stunned. You were never worthy of the throne, she whispered. And it was over. Hours later, the fires had died. Jace lay under a tree, patched up, holding a cup of warm water. His wounds were healing. Slowly, Valari sat beside him. Naira curled between them. No guards, no warships, just silence and peace. Naira looked up at Jace. Are we safe now, Papa? He looked at her, smiled softly, and nodded. Yes, for real this time. Valari leaned her head against his shoulder. No more running, she said. No more pretending. Jace looked at them both. You're not slaves, he said. Not property. Not mine by law or title, but if you want, I'll still be here. Valari took his hand gently, We were never yours by force, she said. But now, we're yours. By choice. Jace closed his eyes. For the first time, in years he felt whole. They weren't bought. They weren't taken. They were a family, forged in fire, bound by trust and chosen by love. And that was stronger than any throne.